Good morning, Facebook friends. Helen Arcantu here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers. If you're in Northern New Jersey, it's a little gloomy today. We've had a lot of rain after a lot of sun, which just is a good reminder that global warming exists and is a real thing, and something we should be paying attention to. But there's a lot that we should be paying attention to, and that's really what today's conversation is about. Something else we should be paying attention to. June is Pride Month, as we know. There's been celebrations happening everywhere to really, bring attention and support, for our LGBTQ plus communities. And we, as an organization, have been so proud to be part of so many wonderful events that happened in Montclair and in Fairlawn and with the Bergen Newbridge Medical Center for the county and over at the zoo. So we've been all around. Our amazing team has shown up, and we will continue to do that. And we don't just do it in the month of June; we do it year round. But today, I thought it was so important to share this story with you and this wonderful human being who's with us as our guest today, Miss Karen Foote. Some of you may remember she was actually on with us a little while ago, talking about something different. Today, we're talking about a personal journey that she has gone through, or is going through, I should say, as a loving parent who has helped her trans daughter weather the twists and turns associated with this life-altering experience. And I really felt this was an important story to share because as caregivers, as women, we are so often put in position that someone who we are caregiving for is going through an experience, and we have to really step up and help advocate for them, and sometimes activate for them. And it's not always a role that we feel comfortable with because we don't feel trained or ready for it, but yet we are chosen, and so it goes. And Karen and I have had some of these conversations about her experience, and I was so grateful that she's so generous to come share a little bit about her story, stepping into that space of using her voice and really getting comfortable with that experience. Because although this conversation is so poignant to be doing during this month in June, again, as women and caregivers, we get called with so many different topics and so many different ways to step up and step in. But so with that, I want to tell you more about Karen. She's here to, tell her about her background. She is the owner of Moon Magic, a spiritual wellness center located in Northern New Jersey. And she is a down-to-earth, spiritual, intuitive healer who offers one-to-one healing sessions for those who consciously are on a spiritual journey. She provides a unique blend of doing healing body work and intuitive readings, including Reiki, craniosacral therapies, crystal healing, chakra healing, oracle card readings, therapeutic massage, and sound healing. She also is the host of Spiritual Seekers podcast and regular offers classes and gatherings at her metaphysical shop, where she shares her favorite things with open and interested students. She loves bringing spirituality down to earth and grounded approach to everything she does. She seeks to empower and to connect people by having them find their authentic selves and normalizing and demystifying the spiritual experience. And, thinking about all of that and thinking about what your life has been like, for the last few months, I know doesn't feel so balanced, right? Doesn't feel so kind of, so it's, I think, wonderful, that you have that background, to be able to pull from, for sure. Yeah. So before we kind of jump into it, can we talk a little bit about coming from this space though, that is so about, being aligned with yourself, and so about, intuition and healing and serenity and, creating, this safe space to really be able to heal and grow and, engage. And, over these last few years, be in a situation where, you have to use your voice and, step into the world in what seems like it must have been a different way, than how you were operating, because of your training and your business, and where you're just naturally inclined, from my experience with you. I mean, I think that's your calling, no doubt. You definitely have found your place. But what has that been like for you to kind of go from the world that you've trained, to be in, and then have to step into a world that's very different, and use your voice in a different way?
Well, in the beginning, it was so quiet. So it was really like it was just our like secret at home, and our trying to understand everything. But along the way, when it became clear that it wasn't just a phase. And when I see those statements where it says it's just a phase, I cried the first time I saw it, because I was like, oh, that was me thinking it was just a phase, but it was, it was just closeted, but like for my whole thing with like spirituality is like making it normal and just being down to earth about it. And like, oh yeah, spirit guides. Oh yeah, past lives, like whatever, no big deal. So that's what people appreciate about my way of teaching, is because I just make it so matter of fact. So that's what this transgender stuff is with me. I'm like, whatever, it's just what it is. It's no big deal. It's just that society is not okay with it. And like, society's not okay with the word witch, but I'm like, the word witch is fine. So it's just it's like a similar kind of like, not paradigm, but like format. And it's just like, now I'm popping the transgender thing into the same format of like, why can't we just normalize it? So, but yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question, but it was definitely a struggle in the beginning, and like trying to like make sense of it, and then kind of coming to grips with it, and then moving forward, and then being a voice to it. Cause it's like, how you can't keep it a secret forever, eventually Gregory started looking like a girl, Gregory became Grace, and her hair became long, and, so only so long we could fool Pa.
Right. Life changed significantly. And so you had to manage that change as well.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you answered it perfectly. And I think we'll probably get back to it again as we talk a little bit about your story and Grace's story. Your story as a parent supporting,
Mm-hmm.
Grace through her transition.
Right.
So tell us, I mean, you started to touch on it there. Tell us a little bit about when you kind of noticed that, things were changing, and how, as a parent, you dealt with that. And, we have had, I have to say, over the years on YWTV, some other parents come and tell their story about supporting their child who, identified in the LGBTQ community, and how, they went through a kind of a parallel process to their child, and had to go through their own experience, and, and how those two kind of traveled alongside of each other, and when and if they intersected. So I guess, I think that that's part of a great conversation to share with other, women that might be, and in this situation, that they're going to have to travel this road.
There wasn't any signs. We didn't know. It wasn't like, so when Grace figured out she was Grace, she told us like 3 days later, and we were like, what? Like, it was almost like you hear the record scratch, because it wasn't like we were waiting for her to figure it out and was celebrating with her. Like, yay, we've known this all along. We were waiting for you to catch up. We had no clue. So we didn't respond with like bells and whistles. We were like, hold the phone. Like, how long has this been? Okay, 3 days you figured this out? Okay, let's just, and how wonderful that she felt safe enough to tell us. I mean, like, we're a very loving and accepting family. And, when she was little, we would say, you can love whoever you want, like, we would never pigeonhole into being like this straight is the only way to be. But there were no signs of that, and when she was little, I remember like she, as a little boy was interested in little girls. So I thought, oh, phew, like, she's straight, like, okay, her life will be easier. So, she always was interested in girls. So that wasn't a red flag, and then that summer, before she realized she was trans, she started, I guess, feeling like she had a crush on one of her friends, her boyfriends, So she's like, I might be bi. And I was like, well, who cares? That's fine. Whatever. You love people. Like, that's not, we didn't expect that, but it wasn't like, I'm going to stop loving you now. It was just like, okay, whatever. If that's what you do, that's what you do. And I was like, you're human, that you love humans. Like, people are people. Like, you don't have to love someone because of their gender. Like, if they're a good person, they're a good person. So she was like, oh, she was really refreshed that I responded like that. But then, a few months later is when she put the pieces together and figured out she was trans. And we were just like, no, I don't think you are. I think that you might just be depressed. So we broke her heart, and she sobbed and she cried her eyes out in her room. And we never heard her wail so hard when we rejected her. So we were not, the ideal response at all. And immediately we start researching everything to find out why she's wrong, what like rabbit hole she fell into to have an outlet for her depression. Like, not that this is an easy answer, but we almost thought that she was looking for an easy answer to explain away her depression. That just shows how little we knew. And then, like, the whole gender dysphoria thing, we just thought it was teenage hormones, like my husband had depression when he was younger, like some of my uncles, some of my siblings, like, I don't suffer from depression, but it's in the family. So we just figured, oh, it's part of teenagerhood, whatever. So didn't think it was gender dysphoria. But then somebody that she talked to online pointed it out to her. Like, all of the things that she was complaining about in life had to do with this big body, this hairy body. And she was really pissed that she was so hairy. And, she just felt like a monster and didn't love her body at all. She just felt uncomfortable in it. And, but, didn't have the language to say that necessarily until it was pointed out. And then she kind of was able to see it. So that was really hard for her. And then, like, looking back at pictures of us as a family. So this was in November 2019, just like a couple of days before she turned 15, that she realized this about herself. And then, but we didn't move on anything for a year and a half. So in that year, every family picture, I see the pain in her eyes, because she was this heavy, hairy boy and she was not happy being a heavy, hairy boy. And, we kind of were afraid that she was going to turn into a sloppy girl. And this is like such a stupid, like, patriarchal idea of what feminine is. But we were afraid she'd be like, like a bearded man, and that sounds like such a terrible thing to say, but that's a real honest fear of ours. Like, is she going to be a pretty girl? Like, is she going to be able to pull it off? And she did. She has. But, like, in the beginning, we couldn't even see her as a girl. But now that she's totally feminized, I almost can't see her as not who she is now, So she lost a bunch of weight. She got on acne medicine because she had really bad acne, which we didn't want her to be on in the first place, but she really did need it. So, she changed dramatically. We paid for laser hair removal, and she started all the hormone therapy and all that stuff. So now she's very much like, everything is very feminine. And it's crazy how foreign that big hairy boy is to, it's not even her anymore at all, of course, so whatever, that's that.
Yeah, well, let me just again thank you for being so generous and sharing your family, your experience and what went on in your head, because I know that as a parent, you always want to feel like you're going to respond in the textbook right way, when situations are presented to you. But we also know that there's no textbook right way probably to do anything. And, the journey is, part of the process, for sure. And, sharing what you were going through and, how you were able to support your child, through this journey is just very generous of you. I hear in your voice that you had a lot to process yourself, in terms of Grace transitioning. How did you do that? Obviously, you're telling it to us in this kind of like sound bite of time. But, from talking about 2019, we're in 2023. That's a lot of time that's passed. And obviously you came from a place of spiritual healing so that you had a framework, for working through things. But this is a lot.
It is a lot. And I reached out to my friends like right away. My sisters, my sister and my best friend, my best friend I've known since I was 3. And then my sister, of course, my whole life. So I reached out to 2 of them right away. And they both were like behind me on it. They're like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. I don't think this is right, And then I reached out to like my psychic healer friends who can tune in and stuff. And everyone gave me really muddied answers. So there wasn't anybody telling me an absolute yes on this, which made it even more confusing. And also the conflict and worry about the medicine and everything. So, you know, basically the first year was like a holding pattern, and it was like, let's just get you therapy, let's do our research and all of that stuff. And then at times I would say to her, I'd go, and me and, you know, as a little child, Grace and I were very close. We're always super close. And then this put a wedge between us. My husband had a bigger gap before he could accept it. So I could only move as fast as he moved. And, you know, it would be bad for our marriage if I was going to hold down, you know, like it was one of those things where you just couldn't push it faster. And I wasn't ready to push it that much faster anyway. I still needed my own time to kind of absorb it. But I had moments of clarity when I went into her room, and I was just like, I'm so proud of you for like standing up for what you believe in. And then she'd say, well, why aren't you giving me medicine then? And she would get all mad. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I you know, we need to like go slow with this. We can't just jump into it. So, and one thing I mentioned, I had written like a blog post about it recently. And one of the things I had written in there was how I have like my own chat with her and her brother, Andrew. And it was always called My Beautiful Boys. So there was one night, and I don't remember when it was. It was probably a year into it or something. It was before we agreed to hormones and stuff, but I changed the chat to My Beautiful Children. And it alerted them that I changed the name of the chat, and like Grace tore into my room and like barreled me down with a hug. And it was like, oh, like that was really awesome for her to be seen and to feel it from me. So that was really nice and good. But something in me made me reach out to my teacher like in July of 2021, where I was like, is this really real? Like, I don't think this is going away, you know? And she's like, oh, I'm getting a yes. And even after she transitions, she's still going to have some challenges. And when I actually read it wrong, I thought she meant like transitions as in dies, because I'm in the spirit world where we talk about this stuff. So I was like, oh, interesting. After she passes, she'll still struggle. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I think she meant she's going to transition. You know, like it dawned on me like a second. And then I had a new deck of oracle cards that I was playing with, and I pulled a card on behalf of this whole process, and the card said acceptance. And it was this gender neutral picture of it looks like a Native American person, but not really gender, you know, identifying. And I just wept because it was like perfect. I was like, okay, I accept it now. Like I'm finally caught up to like the reality of where we're at. And even before that, like a few months before that, because Grace was so insistent, like I did take her to an endocrinologist, but this endocrinologist, there's like no vetting process or anything. They just go, okay, yeah, here's the meds. And you're just like, wait, you're going to like give us a questionnaire or like maybe interview us a little bit longer. So that really wigged me out that they were so quick to like just hand over like testosterone blockers. And I wasn't, and my husband's like, why did you take the prescription? I'm like, I don't know. I just, you know, it's like you're just in the doctor's office and you accept it. But I didn't like that they were just handing over a prescription without even like any sort of psychological profiling or something, you know? So that's when, and Grace was like, okay, I won't take it then. You know, I just want you to be comfortable about it. So it wasn't until like after that realization in July of 2021 that we went and spoke with a pediatric. She's a pediatrician, but she focuses on gender affirming things as well as eating disorder things. So those are her two specialties. So we went to see her, and she spoke with us, and that's when we started to get serious about it all. But yeah, it was totally, you know, a long process of going to therapy. You know, she was going to therapy, and then me and my husband sat in on a therapy session twice, I think, with her therapist. And then it was clear where the resistance was coming from. It was like, you know, like my husband was having a hard time with, so it was like his whole childhood things his belief systems were being rattled. So once I got on board, he kind of was like, well, I guess, you know, I'm not going to. And even Grace, I think, threw around suicide as like a threat. Not that she was suicidal, but she was like, well, I'm going to just have to commit suicide if you don't do this for me, you know? So he's like, well, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. You know, like that's taking it to extreme. So it was, I don't think it was 100% real of a threat, but it was like a bad enough threat that you're going to listen. So he was like, okay, I'll you know, I'm not going to stand in the way of it, because he wanted to wait until she was 18 and it was going to be on her dime and not his money. It was like going to be like that. So, but it changed. It softened. So it's all good. So right before she turned 17, she started the hormones.
Well, you said so much in what you just shared about how you reached out to your circle, for
Mhm.
support and, obviously, reached out for some mental health support and, the need for, you know, uh, those with, knowledge, to be able to chime in and help direct you and, with your thinking and the writing. I mean, the fact that you have found your, a blog post, you'd mentioned and a way to be able to capture all that was going on for you. I just want to lift all those pieces up because anyone watching who might be going through a situation where they're being called to, step up and step into a place that they are not sure that either they're ready for or comfortable with, you just gave a really great outline, for them of ways to be able to help stabilize them through the process, which is clearly, a bit of a roller coaster as you're, navigating it for sure. So here you are, 2023. Grace, you're able to really talk through Grace's journey, and look at it from a different place. I always think about climbing a mountain and then like looking back.
Mhm.
Hate to sound like a Stevie Nicks song, I guess, but nonetheless, that's kind of what it feels like, listening to you. Um, but, you mentioned it. I mean, your child, and I know Barbara Giarmo's been on our show and talked about her experience with, her son, and that's how she helped found PFLAG, here for, the Bergen
Mhm.
County area because she really needed that support and didn't have it, and was trying to create it for others after her own experience. You know, you obviously had to go through a process, as you said, of grieving a little bit and kind of, shifting, in your head.
Mhm.
Um, Now, how do you, help prepare? I mean, you mentioned that your teacher had said, that Grace will have still a lot to navigate, going forward. And, how are you preparing for that? And, what and how do you call out of yourself to be able to be there for her through what's up ahead when, it's hard to know what that is, but we do know from the climate that we're in that
Mhm.
it's, the potential for there to be some tough days for sure.
The new target for hate, you mean? Yeah, it's terrible. But like she's lived such an insulated experience. So she left high school early because lockdown happened soon after she came out, which was convenient. And then it was like the idea of going back to school in the fall of 2021 was kind of like freaking her out. And she hated school since she was little. She's also on the spectrum. She's like on that Asperger side of things. So she never really liked school to begin with, but she was always a good student and did what she had to do. So she didn't require help or anything. But just conforming to school was not like she just hated it. She did fine, but she didn't really love it. So we're like, you could just withdraw and go to college early. So that's what she did. So she got her high school equivalency and did 2 years of Bergen. So she's done with that now and she'll be going to Rutgers in the fall, but she's been in her bedroom for all this time. So like, I don't know, like she hasn't really had many encounters in the real world. I do worry about what will happen once she goes to school in the fall. But she hasn't had any issues because she's been insulated. So I don't know what she's going to be up against. She went and she has an online girlfriend that she became friendly with like a year ago. And then they fell in love and they concocted this whole plan. So she went to Norway a few weeks ago to meet her in person. And her girlfriend's also transitioning. She's at the same stage and like about the same age, like a few months apart. So she's living in Norway right now until the middle of the summer. So I was worried for them. Like if you're traveling around in Europe, like, are you guys going to be targeted? Like, I don't know. Like Norway is probably a similar climate to ours, maybe a little less hate, but it's still like, not like San Francisco. So she hasn't reported anything back to me. And at this point, she does really pass as a girl. We were scared that she might not pass as a girl, but she does. So, and her girlfriend does too, I think. So, their voices are a little deeper. So if there was somebody out there who wanted to pick on them, I'm sure they could. I just hope they don't. And I just like, I give her all of my energy protection tips and bless your space, call on your guides and angels, and, wrap yourself in light, and, whatever. Just trust your gut. If you feel something's wrong, don't even wait for an explanation, just leave. So she's got all those tools in her tool belt. So she hasn't come across any bigotry firsthand. It's me who's experiencing it in our community, because I'm standing up to our Board of Ed. But but I don't know. The future's unknown. And how is it going to go? I don't know. But I mean, what do you care about someone's genitals? So if she's going to be wearing clothes that don't reveal her genitals, she'll pass as a girl. And, I don't know. I don't know what's going to come of it. But I hope that with the tools that I've raised her with, that she can avoid any sort of BS conflict,
Right. Well, that's helpful to hear. And again, for those listening that are, navigating, a similar experience, it's helpful to know. I mean, it's really what you pour into them, and then just, be there. So what message do you have for, another woman who, might be, needing to step into a space, with their voice, for something that they're still figuring out themselves, for their child or loved one? What's been able to give you, you talked about your circle, you've talked about, obviously your spirituality and the space that you had, what's been, what's a message, that's some grounding, to give them to help navigate what might be ahead? And what do you pull on for yourself? Because obviously, as you just noted, you are, working in your community, to try to address, some of, what's,
hate and bigotry.
Hey, yeah, I was going to say what we know is happening across our country,
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, but, in lots of different places, you're tackling it in one place, but, how do you navigate that for yourself? How do you keep yourself, grounded, as well?
I think just doing the work I do keeps me grounded, because I'm always connecting with spirit and I'm always channeling energy. So that's a huge help, just by being in the work that I do and seeing the impact I make and knowing how I'm changing lives and helping people. So one of the haters was like, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm like, oh, screw you. Like, no, I shouldn't be. Okay, use another fake account then, So I'm living my life authentically. I'm protecting my energy regularly. And if I don't protect my energy, I feel it. So I'm very sensitive to energy. So I'm regularly wrapping my home and my business in light and calling on guardians and protection. So that's not, I'm very exposed, So one of these haters, I blocked them after they pulled some crap last week, and then they found my business page. But when I tuned into my business the other day, I saw 2 sphinxes outside the door. They're I feel so protected. So I'm not really, I feel like I've got such a ton of protection that they can't touch me, even though, they can try, but I just know that they're not going to be able to. So having that level of confidence is pretty awesome. I just feel good. And hopefully, I wouldn't hesitate to take it to authorities if I needed to, but I don't think it's going to get that far. But just being true to yourself and being true to your child and being honest and authentic, that's the only advice I can give, because, not everyone wants to be outspoken. I mean, I didn't know I'd end up in this role, but it's fine. I can manage it, but I don't know. I don't know what advice to give other than to love your child for where they're at, and there's kids that fluctuate with their, their level of commitment to their gender identity, and who cares? You just love your kid for where they're at. So I got put into all these different Facebook groups by different friends right after I was vocal about Grace being Grace. So, there's these mama dragon groups and all that stuff. So seeing the different experiences that others have, make me more aware and more grateful, so I guess to just find those networks of support would be a good advice, a good starting point. But sometimes it can be overwhelming. Those groups get to be a lot. So I have to hide them after a while, because it's I don't want to see everything every day, all day. But to choose to go into those groups to support when you want them, because otherwise it can saturate.
Well, that's really great advice, though, in terms of kind of managing what's coming at you, take it when you need it, and then also shut it down when you need to. Also, that's great advice that you just gave right there. So tell us a little bit about your blog site. I know that you started one, through this process, and tell us, why you started it, and what your hope is for it.
Well, actually, I started a blog back in 2011 when I first began. Like, I would go to these different like support circles of angelic and whatever kind of community. So one time at one of those meetings, the woman said, the angels are giving you an assignment. You have to do something creative. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll do a blog. I'll create a blog. So I created a blog about my spiritual journey. And then like, I'm spotty in my commitment to it. But so I made a new blog post. Like I kind of intuitively heard, like make a blog post and put it out as a podcast because you want to reach twice as many people or whatever. So my most recent podcast and my most recent blog post are the same, and they're about like our trans journey. So, but no, it's just another another opportunity to share that information. But I don't know how committed I'll be to the blog after this. You know, like it's just like whenever spirit guides me. So it's not a new blog; it's just a new blog post.
So. Yeah, well, and I appreciate that, and we have a writing group at the YW, and so many of those who've been part of it have talked about how it really helped them access their power, in certain situations, and just get clarity on how they were feeling. So it really is a powerful tool.
Yeah, like journaling. Totally.
Yes. Yeah. So I appreciate that you created that space for yourself, for your own healing. But, through that, though, it definitely, creates an opportunity for others.
Yeah, it's important,
It absolutely is. I want to make sure to call out for those of you watching that you can connect with Karen. Obviously, she is amazing in her work. She also is clearly an amazing advocate for her children, I should say, but for Grace and what Grace has, been through and going through, and you can connect with her by following her. You can hear her podcast. You can connect with her on social media and follow her pages. I know I've been following your pages for some time, and I've always feel very uplifted and centered, when I connect with them. I think we would be remiss in, leaving the podcast without actually calling out our Attorney General filed a lawsuit just yesterday. He made a press statement about, a lot of this hate, that we're referring to. Karen's been dealing with it, in her community, despite the fact that Grace is no longer, in that school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a testament to, again, what happens, when, women as caregivers end up stepping into these roles. What you're doing obviously now is bigger, than your experience, for your child. And yet clearly we know that's where it was motivated from. But I do encourage you all, and we will put the link here to the press statement that the Attorney General put out. We'll make sure we have it in the comments for you. If not right now, we'll get it in there for you to see. It is important to educate yourself on what's happening around our state, around our country, and, to think about ways that you can be supportive. Karen shared a very personal experience about her journey with her child. And I think, the piece that's so important to just remember is that, we want to make sure that, our children are supported through their journeys so that they can live their lives, however it is that they are intended to live them. And that it is urgent that we address these issues, because we don't want children to not live their lives and to live in any kind of pain because of that. So it's important to get educated. Yes.
To see how happy she is now. I mean, she was always like a more serious, quiet kid. Like even old baby pictures of her, she wasn't like a smiley kid. Like Andrew was a goofy kid, always smiling and making us laugh. But Grace was always more serious and like contemplative and like deep thinking and all of that. But now to see like every picture she sends me with her girlfriend in Norway, it's like this glow and this joy and these smiles that I've never seen before. And it just makes a huge difference to support your child. Like why? I'm glad that the schools are protecting of parents that might not accept their kids. I don't think that that's wrong. I think that's good, because the kid will tell you if they know to trust you. And our kid did, and we gave him a bad response. But like, we supported her in the end. And, it didn't take long, of course. We assured her we loved her the whole way through it, but it was still not easy. But to hear her whistling, she's got the Asperger's thing. So like, like kids on the spectrum, like they make noises and things like that. She would do all those joyful sounds after, like in the last few months, she did them all, like leading up to Norway. She was like doing all these like little happy clicks and things. And we're like, oh my God, I haven't heard those sounds in so long. So to make your child feel content with being who they are, like, holy moly, that's a great gift. So I'm just happy that she's very happy and so smiley now. So
well, it is a great gift. And thank you for modeling that for other parents. And thank you for sharing your story again. And it's so important, again, that, women as caregivers, Karen gave us a little bit of a recipe book here about, when you do get called, whatever, and however, for whatever reason, how to, kind of stabilize yourself and move through it. And so with that, and, there's always more to talk about, and I'm sure we will continue talking about this and with you about all the great work that you do in the community. We're grateful that we have you. You're an amazing businesswoman, amazing, entrepreneur, amazing with all the great energy you put in the world, clearly a great mom. And so much that we can all learn from this time that we had with you here. And for our viewers, I do hope, as you know, YWTV is about sharing the story. So please take what you learned here today, something, and integrate it into a conversation you have with someone. Take this podcast, share it with someone that you think would really benefit from, hearing this conversation. And we look forward to being with you again on YWTV soon. Karen, again, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.